Unlike the worst of 2022 last week, which was a fairly easy list of 10 to compile, there were 15 to 20 films vying for 10 spots on this list. And then someone asked me if one of my fave films of the year was on the list, and it wasn't because I'm an idiot and I'd missed it off my spreadsheet, so we now have a top 11, so let's jump in with number 11 and see what I finally chose. Number 11, The Menu. An R-rated ratatouille for the internet age. That calls out the absolute pretentiousness of foodies in a very on-the-nose style, and then goes on to call out its own very on-the-nose style. Just the right mix of serious subject matter that knows it is being presented in a goofy manner, and leans into that, which is when it's at its best. Works as a straight skewering of foodies, and as a metaphor for the creation of art, with every character being a facet of that whole art industrial complex. The acting is superb, and weirdly enough it's the first of 2 appearances a John Leguizamo film makes on this list. Never has a cheeseburger been made more threateningly. Highly recommended, if it starts streaming near you. Number 10, The Batman. I famously hate comic book movies, and a comic book movie seems to have snuck on my list somehow. I have no idea because it's also really long. Something else I usually hate, and every scene is lit by a 5-watt bulb, so you are usually straining to see whatever is on screen. Another pet peeve, and yet this has still made my best list for 2022, which means I must have really enjoyed the story and the 2 leads, Pattinson and Kravitz, who are excellent here. I also just really like Batman, so that may well have something to do with it. Number 9, Chippendale Rescue Rangers. If you'd told me that 2022 would see a Who Framed Roger Rabbit style Chippendale film released, and I'd enjoy it, not just enjoy it, but enjoy it enough to put it on my end of year best list, I'd have laughed in your face, because I hate remakes and reboots, and I hadn't thought about this cartoon since I was like 8 or 9 years old. I suspect nobody else has either. How and why this got made is baffling to me, but I am really happy it did because it is just a really fun movie that everyone in the family will enjoy. It's pretty funny and has a bunch of IP crossovers that hold quite a bit of nostalgia for an 80s and 90s kid like me. If you have kids or you're a 40-year-old man-child like me who remembers watching Saturday morning cartoons, then you'll love this. Number 8, Emergency. It's a bromantic comedy with a really important message that was genuinely funny. Starts off as a coming-of-age thriller, then transitions smoothly into being a tense thriller. Think Superbad, but everyone is black and the potential issues that brings with American police. But at the heart of it, it's a story about male friendships and how important they are, which is excellently portrayed by the cast. This was a genuine pleasant surprise. Number 7, 3,000 Years of Longing. A story about stories, a kind of modern slow-paced fairy tale, where 2 people basically fall in love via telling stories from their past. Idris Elba and Tilda Swinton are fantastic as the leads, even if their romance isn't entirely convincing. George Miller once again proves he's just a fantastic director who understands storytelling better than most people. This was badly let down by poor advertising that made it look more like Everything Everywhere All at Once, but it is nothing like that in reality. If you like good storytelling, you'll love this. Number 6, Violent Night. A seemingly fairly polarizing film where people love it or hate it. I of course loved it as someone who loves B-movies and schlock. This film subverted all the right tropes, had a lot of laughs, and was hugely fun and didn't take itself at all seriously. Plus, John Leguizamo once again popped up in a movie twice in a week, having not seen him in a movie in years. I don't really do Christmas movie traditions, but if I did, I might add this to the mix. Number 5, Prey. I love this film so much I apparently forgot to add it to my list of films I'd seen this year in my haste to make a video espousing just how much I loved it. As I said in that video, this did the basics of film brilliantly, sets stuff up and then pays it off. The acting was brilliant and it took the long dead carcass of the Predator franchise and breathed new life into it. unlike the prior few films who wore it as a sort of weirdly uncomfortable costume, giving us something entirely new yet familiar, which is really difficult to do with a tired, almost 40-year-old franchise. Number 4, All Quiet on the Western Front. This is a bit of a masterpiece of a film, probably by far the best film on this list, but ends up third because I subjectively enjoyed 3 films more than it this year. I haven't read the book since I was at school or seen the other film adaptations, so can't comment on if it is a great adaptation, but as a film it was a very powerful depiction of the horrors and ultimate futility of war and blind nationalism. Even manages to make the Germans seem a little bit sympathetic, which takes some doing. As I said at the beginning, it is simply a masterpiece of filmmaking. Number 3, Everything Everywhere All at Once. I watched this the same week as the Multiverse of Madness, or whatever the Doctor Strange film was called, and they are like chalk and cheese in comparison to each other. One is boring and formulaic cinema by committee, designed to try and appeal to the most people, and therefore ends up like a vanilla ice cream. It is almost always fine, very hard to do really badly, and even harder to make it even remotely memorable as a result. Everything Everywhere All at Once is that drink you concoct at 3 AM after a massive bender. It has everything in it, shouldn't work, and yet is one of the most refreshing things you've ever had in your entire life. I really wish we had more films like this that are just bonkers fun, and less Marvel flavoured vanilla blancmange. Oh, and Ke Huy Quan made a comeback, and it was magnificent. Number 2, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Another movie which was just bonkers fun. As someone who is a huge late stage Nick Cage fan, and has seen all of his recent films, I was always going to see this, and let's be honest, Nick Cage can be hit and miss. This was a huge hit for me. Starts out as a weird dramatisation of Nick Cage's life, becomes a hilarious bromance movie with Pedro Pascal, then by the end, descends into a semi-farcical action flick. It had one of the funniest scenes I've seen in a movie in years, and I just had a huge amount of fun watching it. Another film that took huge chances with its narrative and nailed most of them. Number 1, Top Gun Maverick. There could be only one winner of this year's best film. As soon as I saw it in the cinema, I knew this was the best film I'd see in 2022, because I thought this kind of cinematic experience was dead, and I'd be condemned to a lifetime of turgid, CGI-infested comic book movies. But thankfully, Tom Cruise might be as creepy as all hell and madder than a box of rats, but good lord, he knows how to make movies. From the opening plane porn montage as Highway to the Danger Zone blasted out, to the very end, I enjoyed every minute of this, even if it is little more than American military propaganda, masquerading as an action film. As Mrs. Cooking said as we left the cinema, I don't think I've ever been as satisfied by a film before. I have once or twice, but not in at least half a decade. I wish more films were like this year's top 3, but sadly, as we will see in my look forward to 2023 even, I'm rebooting the years. That's how many reboots, rehashes and sequels and adaptations we're getting in 2023. I'm rebooting 2022. If you enjoyed this and want to see that, then like, comment and subscribe.